How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. Today I want to go over 5 different ways to retire early and kind of compare them to the average American. So before we get into it, I want to say thank you guys for watching. We're getting really close to 3,000 subscribers. So videos like this don't typically do as well as some of like the penny stock videos or some of the videos on NAT. So if you're watching this, I would really appreciate a thumbs up, and if you feel like subscribing, that would be awesome too if you haven't subscribed already. Only about 20 to 30% of the people that are watching this video are actually subscribed, which is crazy to me. So if you've seen a couple of my videos and you really like them, I'd really appreciate it for you to join the family here and subscribe to the channel, because I plan on making daily videos here for a while still, and then even then I'm gonna make regular videos even if I stop doing it every day. So I appreciate that, and I won't hold you too long here before we get into it, but I do want to say too, if you want to start investing with M1 Finance, I did a video just yesterday about how I'm investing with just $100 a week to become a dividend investor in that particular portfolio, and it's going to be cool because I'm really starting it from zero, and I'm going to do it a lot more consistently than what I have been doing with Robinhood, and it's only going to be dividends. So I really like the interface there, but I'll link to the video here if you want to see that. I think that it's going to be really awesome, and if you want to join with me, there are links down to M1 Finance in the description. And if you want to support some other way, there's another link to WeBull where you can get some free stocks if you sign up and deposit $100. If you watch some of this and you really like these videos and feel like you've gotten a lot out of it, there's also a link to Patreon where you can sign up and you can join our investing Discord. So let me know if there are any questions that you have, but otherwise we'll just get into the video here. So with the average American working until they're about 65 to 67, that's just in our culture right now, I thought it'd be really cool to take a look at different ways to retire early, because this is really why people work, right? So a lot of people don't work because of the fact that they love their job. A lot of people work just because they feel like they need to put money and put food on the table, really. So we're going to take a look at different ways to retire early, and we're going to do that with just an average salary of $60,000. That's actually below the average American salary. I think the average American salary is right around the mid-60s, but this is either for a family, that's the average for a family, or if you make more than this, that's great. You can just double whatever you invest and some of the other information on here, and that should be good for you. So if you don't already know, there's something called the 4% rule. So basically, whatever you can live on, you have to multiply that by 25, and then that is how much you need to retire in investments and stocks, really. So if you spend $40,000 a year, the 4% rule would mean that you need $1 million to be able to retire, and that is $1 million invested, and then you just take 4% out. And that's based on a study where they showed that about 96% of 30-year spans made it so that you would still have money afterwards. So what we're gonna do is look at 5 ways to retire by 55 today. So this is the first scenario. This is really, I feel like, the normal American scenario, and I left the salaries the same all throughout, so hopefully you get more each year, a little bit more in a raise or something, but we're just gonna pretend like you don't get any more and you're just stuck at 60,000 between you and your significant other. And we are starting in year 1. Let's say you're 22, 23, it doesn't really matter. You could be 35, and you'll just have to adjust this for yourself. So year 1, you decide that you make $60,000, but you don't have enough to invest, so your balance at the end of year 1 is $0. This continues until, let's say you're 30, or let's say you're 22 in year 1. This continues until you're 30, and then you're like, crap, okay, I need to start investing for retirement. So you start saving about 6% of your salary. So maybe you save or invest 3% in your company 401k, and then your company also invests 3%. So you save and invest about $3,600 a year, and you continue to do this for a couple years, and you up it 1%, and when you're a little bit older, when you're 35, and you continue to do this, you're getting pretty solid gains of 8%, which is pretty normal for the stock market. And you are able to do this year after year. You never take money out or anything like that. And then by the time that you're 65, you have about $820,000, which is a very significant amount. That's better than a ton of Americans have, because most Americans don't have close to this in retirement, but it's not as much as it could be, and you've worked till you're 65 to get this. So you worked year after year in the job that you don't really like, and I think that there are better ways of being able to invest for early retirement. So in this next scenario, let's say that you can save about 10% of your salary. Some of this is from your work, and some of this is from just you contributing a little bit more. So you are able to invest about $6,000 each year, but then you also pick up some extra work. So let's say you start a side job, or maybe you just get paid $6,000 more, maybe you get a raise or something, but you're able to get about $6,000 extra in income. So between the $6,000 that you invest and the $6,000 in extra work, you invest the whole thing, you're getting 8% return year after year. You do this for a significant amount of time, and again, you don't get paid any more each year. You're staying at the same. After 31 years, you have $1.6 million. So you don't even have to work until you're 55 in this scenario. You start at 22, let's say, you stop at 53, and then by then, you're actually able to have more money than you actually need, because if you use the 4% rule, you have about $64,000 worth that you can take out each year. Now, at this point, you're only spending $54,000, so you don't even need $1.5 million, which would be $60,000, because of the fact that you aren't actually spending $60,000, even though your salary is $60,000, you're only spending $54,000. So you could actually retire even earlier than this if you were just planning on staying at that $54,000 a year that you've been spending. Now, let's say you don't like this scenario, you don't really want to work extra forever. Let's say you decide that you want to really front load your retirement. So in the first, let's say, 8 years after you get out of college or you start working just in general, you really decide to push a ton of money towards your investments. So in this scenario, you decide, I'm going to invest 25% of what I make and what I earn into my investments for the first 8 years. Let's say after that you settle down, or maybe you just don't want to invest that much. You do it for 8 years and you've accumulated a pretty significant amount. So by the time that you're 30, you have $172,000 in the stock market. Now, from then on out, you cut down how much you invest. You only have 10% each year. And you continue to do this until you're again 54 years old, when you break that $1.5 million barrier. So again, in this scenario, you're only spending $54,000 a year. So if you're thinking you're only going to spend $54,000 a year, then you would need a significant amount less. So you would only need $1.35 million. So you could actually retire about 30 years in almost. So in this scenario, you decide to really push in the beginning, and then you're still going to invest throughout the rest of the time, but you're not going to invest as much. Now, the next scenario is taking this, but taking it another step forward. So you really want to push for financial independence really early, so you invest 33%. So I'll get into some different scenarios here in a second, but you invest 33%, and you get up to about $230,000 by the time that you're 30, and then you don't invest another dollar. Maybe you even take a pay cut. Let's say you start making $40,000 a year because you're only spending $40,000 here. Again, this isn't accounting for taxes or anything like that, but let's say one of you quit your job, you or your significant other quit your job, and you decide that you're just not going to invest anymore. You continue until you're 55, and at that point, you have $1.57 million. So that was only after investing for 8 years. And it's not like you invested your entire salary. You invested a third of it, which is a lot compared to Americans, but you probably could invest more. There are other people that save and invest more, and you didn't pick up any extra work, but you were still able to retire relatively young, even though you haven't been investing for over 30 years almost, for 25 years. Now in the next scenario, let's say you're able to beat the market. So you invest $9,000 a year, so 15% of your salary. So maybe you don't want to invest as much, but maybe you are pretty good with picking individual stocks. Maybe you're lucky when you buy the stocks, or maybe you invest in real estate or some other asset that instead of 8% a year, you get 10%. So it's not a huge jump. It's not like we're talking about doubling your rate of return each year. You're talking about beating it by 2%. So instead of getting an 8% return, you consistently get a 10%. And then after 30 years, you're able to retire with $1.6 million. So at the age of 52, you retire early. So you have to put in some work to that. There might be some extra risk. Maybe you invest in real estate and you have to do some active work. But there are tons of possibilities to make a little extra each year. And this is just showing you how much that can do for you in the long term. Now, the last scenario is going to be all out. You're going for financial independence. You're trying to get there as quickly as possible. You're willing to do the extra work. You're willing to invest the extra amount. And you want to get there pretty quickly. So even in this scenario, we're going to say at 30, you start investing less. And you also work less. So let's say for the first 8 years, you save a third of your income, and then you also work an extra little bit and you create some side income, increase your pay by about 10%, and you invest that extra amount too. And then for the first 8 years you do this until you're 30, you've been able to amass about a third of $1 million. And then you have kids or you slow down or something, you could maybe cut back on how much work you do, and then you only invest $10,000, you work less in your side gig, and you only make about half as much. You can still continue at this rate, and then you retire around the age of 44. So you retire with $1.6 million at age 44, which is amazing. And again, you don't need all this because you're only spending $50,000 a year, but you've amassed such a great amount so early that you are able to kind of coast towards the end. So let's say instead you continue with the $20,000 and then you also continue with the $6,000, you would get there even quicker. You would be there in about 20 years. Now, if you were able to save even more, let's say you were able to save 40%, you would get there so much quicker still. And you can keep playing with these and just see how they get there so much faster. In this scenario, you'll get there 2 years faster if you invested another 6.5%. And it's just kind of interesting to go through these. In this scenario, you would retire at the age of 40. So it's amazing to go through these and kind of see all the different possibilities for how you can retire early. And I think that I did a pretty good job of covering each different idea that you can have. And you can do it even faster if you invest, let's say you invest 60% of what you make and you put it into real estate and you get 12% return. You can retire in like 5 or 10 years doing that. But I hope that you guys got something out of this. I think that when I started investing, these were the types of videos that I like to watch and the types of videos that I could really get motivated behind and really want to spend my time wiser and spend my money wiser yet. So I hope that you guys like this. If you did, please leave a thumbs up on the video. It really helps out the channel. Comment below which of these scenarios you're focusing on. I think that I'm more focused on the full out. So I make a significant amount of my income in side income, probably 25 to 35% maybe. I'll have to check in the next couple months. But a lot of my money comes from side income, and I make around this amount, I guess, between the salary and the extra work, but I'm investing a ton, I'm saving a ton. So I hope to be able to push towards financial independence really early and very hard going in that direction. But I'd be interested in seeing, are you more interested in coasting financial independence? Are you more interested in picking up some extra side jobs to make a little extra money to invest? Are you trying to beat the market? And I think that that's really interesting. So a good mix of all these is really the fastest way to get towards financial independence. I'm not a financial advisor, so make sure that you do all your own research on this. But I hope you guys liked it. Again, thank you for the like, and I have those other links to WeBull, M1 Finance, Patreon in the description below. I will see you in the next video. Bye.